6 minutes flies by, let's put it that way.
It really does. I was gonna just do a quick check before we started sharing ideas. Do people feel like you need a lot more time? Did you feel like we just started and then it ended?
Yes, you needed more time.
Do you think I should go another 3 or 4 minutes on the small group discussion?
I'd say let's just keep going.
Just keep going with this?
Yeah, maybe for the next breakout, add 2 more minutes to it so we can get through everyone.
All right, that sounds good to me, Mike. Okay, well, I'm going to record our ideas. And so I was originally thinking I'd do this within my, my little PowerPoint presentation, but I think a Word document is going to be easier. It's going to be really boring for all of you. And actually, Alan, I might need your help to call on people because I won't be able to see who's got their hand raised as I'm typing into my document. So can you assist with the classroom management?
Okay, if it
gets really crazy.
I'll do my best.
Okay. Actually, before we get into that, oh, Ian's in the waiting room. I'll let him in. Before we get into that.
We'll let him in.
Yeah, I think Ian's all right. Last time that I led a Zoom with the small groups, we went around and we went in order and had each group give us one idea at first. So why don't we plan to do that? Alan probably has a list of who is in each room, but I have no idea. So group number 1, you've got the time it takes me to find my Word document and share it to decide what you're going to share first. So here we go. It's going to be a really boring one, but it's going to be better in the long run. Where'd my doc go? There it is. Hopefully you see my really boring list. All right, Alan, this is where I need you to start gathering ideas from group number 1.
Well,
I think that was me and Chris and I forget all the names.
Yes.
Already. Any of you want to start?
You're the one, John.
All right. Well, I'll say so what we're talking about is just questions, just making opportunities, having situations, kind of maybe even planning an idea in your audience's mind for them to kind of reach at later.
Okay. So giving the opportunity for the audience to ask questions. Ooh.
I don't know if John would like to elaborate on that.
Well, and showing them something that provokes a reaction that you can discuss. My example was in the last show I did, we saw the rings of Saturn and they looked kind of incomplete. And we were doing a program about shadows, actually. And so these first graders started, bringing that up spontaneously.
Okay.
That was good.
Got it.
So provoke a reaction by showing them something weird.
Cool. I got it. Okay, I think we're ready for group number 2.
okay, I do have the list. Amy, Joanne, Chris, Marcel, and Steve were in room number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a good conversation. We were talking about doing hands-on activities both inside and outside the theater. So maybe the hands-on activity outside the theater, or either one, is related to the show that they're going to see. So if you're doing a show on black holes, you might have spandex and a ball and try to do a kind of a black hole demonstration outside the theater that folks can see before they go inside and see a show. So anything that is hands-on that can engage the audience is what we're trying to incorporate.
All right, that sounds good. Oh, my A key is a little sticky. Okay, group number 3.
That was Adam, David, Tony, and Toshi.
I guess I'll speak for the group. This is Toshi. We had a bunch of audio difficulties, so we didn't discuss a whole lot. But Ken Brandt was also part of our group and mentioned that he liked one of the shows that I did when I was back at LHS, along with Alan and John Erickson, with the 3-year-olds. And actually, I couldn't quite remember which show he was talking about because we had a couple of younger children's shows. But The one that came to mind first was we had a show at the hall. John can chime in if we still do it, but it was called actually I don't remember what it was called. Sky Tonight, the Star Sky. It was giving the students a blank star map, so it had the stars filled in, but it didn't have any of the connecting lines. So it was an opportunity to have the audience play, make their own constellation, so dot to dot, and then we would go around and we would ask, what constellation they had created, and then knowing how knowing if it was part of Orion, right? Even if it wasn't the constellation of Orion, but they used some of the stars, the presenter could still point to that part of the sky and say that, oh, so these are the stars that they kind of connected here, and these are the ones that this is the shape that they saw. And someone else, we'd kind of go, like, it was a small group activity, so we'd go from group to group. So one group, they might use the same part of the sky, but they might have seen like a totally different shape. So along kind of what Amy was saying, having some interactive thing to get the audience engaged. So and apparently Ken says that I got all 30 students talking at one point. I do have that effect on people sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but,
As I'm
but
typing
yeah.
things, feel free to correct me. I'm guessing that the connecting the dots was not an activity that you did with the 3-year-olds, Toshi. That seems a bit advanced, having been using
Yeah,
Star
it could have been. We did another one that was was talking about the moon. Might have been that one, Journey to the Moon, where we talked a little bit about just the Apollo missions to the moon, and we did a little bit of role playing where we had these vests for students that we made, and so they would put on an astronaut vest just because that was easier for people to get on and off rather than like a full, like, with sleeves and all that. And we had model Saturn V rockets that they could hold, and then we exchanged them for command modules once we had blasted off, and then we got to the moon. We actually sent them out of the theater with one of the parents to have them go around the theater, and as they were orbiting around to represent sort of the astronauts, they orbit around Earth before they went to the moon, and they orbit around the moon before they find a place to land. So then we landed on the moon, and in the meantime, we had transformed the inside of the planetarium. We had these light-colored sheets, bed sheets, that we pulled down over the seats. We had a single row of bench seating. Later, we had 2 rows of bench seating. So we pulled that down and turned on some UV lights so that it looked spacey. And then we had some foam moon balls that we kind of tossed around randomly, and people could, or the astronauts could collect a moon rock sample. So that was another one.
That's cute. All right. Group
I
number
want to go
4.
to Toshi's show.
Yeah.
Oh,
Me
I don't do that
too.
one at my current dome anymore. But you'll have to go visit John Erickson. Find out if they're still doing that show.
I don't
I
think we
did
had to
see it
go
in. I saw it in
3-year-old.
2001 at your planetarium. I thought it was very bold that you had folks actually leave the planetarium, go around and come back. That showed more courage than I ever had.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. Who's in group number 4?
That would be Carol, Joanne, Mary, Patty, and Vincent.
Yay. I don't know if the others took notes. I did. I like that Carol said that she did a Harry Potter Saturday and she had 20-minute rotations. I think that's crazy. But she said in that time they were able to split all their 55 people into the 4 different houses. It was question and answers. They had, and they got points for their correct answers. And of course, the focus was on like the constellations and things that were brought up in the Harry Potter books. And at the very end, I don't know how she did this all in 20 minutes, there was gifts for the winning houses. So I thought that was pretty fabulous. So there was a buy-in, of course, with the theme. There was the excitement of participating in like a contest, and then even prizes. So that sounded like a really fabulous thing to me.
Yeah. So that's audience buy-in right there. They're invested. I was going to make that there. Audience invested in outcome.
The other idea that I thought was neat from our discussion was holding up different objects as responses to questions. I think it was shapes. in the particular example, but you could imagine a lot of different things you might give people to hold up in response to questions.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I shared what I did with my pre-K, but I've done something similar with my public audiences where they had a paper that had flip side. One side had a picture of like a rover and one had a picture of a satellite. And I showed an image and it's like, which did this come from? Did it come from a rover or an orbiting satellite? So they had to hold up which side they thought in response. So
Yeah.
there's lots of different ways you can do handouts, and it's as simple as printing them out and hand them as they come in the door.
Yeah, and that's great for large groups. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We are on group 5.
5 had Caitlin, John, Michael, and Rosemary.
Yeah, so a couple of ideas there. So in this day and age, and maybe this comes in part from the fact that I'm 4 miles from Broadway, but visually compelling still has to be a really important part, I think, of any show we do, whether it's live or a movie. John also mentioned that it's important to get the folks interacting right away. We probably had the experience that if we don't get folks responding in the first 5 minutes, trying to bestir them halfway into a show can be a challenge. And just, I mean, it's obvious, but we're saying just enthusiastic and high energy really makes a huge difference in engaging the audience.
Yeah. I can tell if you're bored.
Yeah.
Oh, she raised his hand.
Oh, Toshi raised his hand. Huh.
I just wanted to sort of add to something that Mike just said about getting people interacting right away. Something I've always remembered from the very, very first LIPS, which Karrie hosted at Digitalis headquarters, was the idea of right at the very beginning, setting the expectation of what the show is going to be like. That if you're doing a live interactive show, that it's not just going to be presenter standing up at the front and just spewing out information, but that you are going to be like, if people have questions and all that, but setting that up very early so that they know this isn't just a sit there and listen, but let's have some discussions, but definitely setting that up at the very beginning, and there's various ways to do that, but just setting that expectation at the very beginning for everyone.
And Joanne Bogan and Tony and I all worked at Bishop Museum at different points in our career. And our trademark is going back and forth in a single show between live sections and recorded sections. And we discovered that if the opening recorded section was, say, 12 or 13 minutes, it was really hard to get the audience to bestir themselves. Whereas if the opening recorded section was, say, 5 or 6 or 7 minutes, it was just much easier to get them to be engaged when the time came to do a live chunk partway into the program.
We have Chris McCall with her hand up.
Okay.
I was
Chris.
just going to say that even doing something as simple as a live Sky Talk, I would come down front and, give some spiel or whatever the case is, and I say, but, this is going to be a completely live show. That means it works best when the audience is
Engaged.
alive. Awake is also good. Anyway, and so, sometimes you'd have to coach them a little bit and go, it's okay to be involved. And so, a little humor, a little interaction. I also know somebody who had gone to a large theater, and while the presenter didn't necessarily have a lot of time to interact with, if you have a large theater and there's a lot of management and, tourists and whatever the case is, and the presenter actually sat down front with a microphone and sort of welcomed people as they came in and asked random questions. Where are you from? What are you interested in? Blah, blah, blah. And I think that sort of gave him a connection to his audience, but also maybe gave him some ideas for, paths to go down during his talk.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. We had 5 groups altogether, right? So we haven't forgotten any groups.
Yes, I think that was the entire set. Yeah, that was the last group.
Okay. Any last thoughts for these aspects of successful live interactive programs before we move on? So we're going to add 2 or 3 minutes to this next section because it went by too fast. No? We feeling good? Okay. I am going to see if I can get over to back here. I had actually originally planned to add my list to my PowerPoint presentation, but I didn't think that was going to work very well. So small group discussion number 2, you can see it there. It's the flip side of what you just talked about. Think about some things that made the show unsuccessful. And you'll see I put a little qualifier down there to limit that to things that the presenter actually had control over, because maybe you've been to a planetarium presentation and the room was freezing cold and that made it unenjoyable. The presenter maybe didn't have any way to address that. So think about the things that the presenter could have done differently. And let's see, last time we had 6 minutes, it was too fast. So let's do 8 minutes this time. So Alan, that would be coming back together at 2:41.
Okay, I'm learning how to do the breakout rooms here as we speak. So what I'm
Okay.
going to do is, do you want all new, you want the same groups or all new groups?
Let's stick with the same, unless
Same
we
groups.
haven't had a huge influx of new people, have we?
Well, we have 28 now.
28 now? Then let's go to 6. Let's go to
Go to
6
6
groups.
rooms.
That'll mix it up a little bit.
So I need to add a room.
And don't forget to
And-
stop recording once you.
Oh, good call. Thanks, Patty.
Oh, good point. Okay, so I'm going to
8 minutes
stop
of 8 minutes
recording.
of Alan and Karrie talking.